Sam adjusted his ill-fitting uniform as he stepped into the grand research chamber of Zanara Prime. It was like walking into a cathedral built entirely of crystal and light. Surrounding him were towering alien women, their iridescent skin shimmering as they turned their piercing gazes toward him. The Lavinia, renowned across the galaxy for their beauty and brilliance, had not disguised their disdain.
"Ah,
the human has arrived," one of them quipped, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "What marvels of primitive biology will he enlighten us with today?" Sam, trying to stay composed, chuckled nervously. "Well, I hear weeds are the toughest plants in the garden." The group erupted into laughter, the sound echoing like chimes in the vast room. Tvelna, the lead scientist, stepped forward, her posture exuding superiority. "Let's hope you brought more than your resilience. Our fertility crisis isn't a problem you can fix with dirt and optimism." "I'll do my best," Sam replied, his tone earnest but tinged with unease. Tvelna raised an eyebrow. "Your best? Fascinating. Does it come in a vial, or do we simply sprinkle it and hope for miracles?" The laughter resumed, and Sam bit his lip, unsure whether she was mocking him or testing him. He was here as a last-ditch effort to aid their research. The Lavinia were facing an unprecedented issue, their crops wouldn't grow, and their biological reproduction was mysteriously halted. Desperation had forced them to consult a human, the species they deemed the galaxy's least impressive. Sam set to work, scanning rows of glowing soil samples. His equipment looked comically primitive compared to the Lavinia's sleek technology, further fueling their amusement. "Look at him fumbling with his relics," one whispered loudly enough for him to hear. "Careful," Sam said with a wry smile. "I might just surprise you." "Oh, we're counting on it," Tvelna retorted, her lips curling into a smirk. Hours passed, and Sam found himself in a frustrating cycle of trial and error. The Lavinia's advanced tech was almost too efficient, leaving little room for the hands-on experimentation he was used to. He reached for a spiky alien plant and accidentally pricked his finger. Blood welled up, and he instinctively wiped it on a nearby soil sample, muttering, "Great. Just what I needed." Tvelna noticed and sighed dramatically. Typical human clumsiness. "Should we call for a bandage, or do you plan to bleed on all our samples?" Sam shrugged. "Maybe my DNA's the secret ingredient you've been missing." The Lavinia chuckled, dismissing his comment as another example of human hubris. They had no idea how prophetic his joke would become. That night, the lab was eerily silent. Sam wandered back to his quarters, replaying the day's humiliations in his mind. He hadn't expected gratitude, but the outright mockery was harder to shake off than he'd anticipated. The next morning, chaos erupted. Sam returned to the lab to find the previously barren plants thriving. Vines twisted and stretched, bearing luminous fruits that emitted a faint, otherworldly glow. Tvelna was standing amid the greenery, her usually composed face a mask of disbelief. "What did you do?" she demanded, her voice sharp enough to cut through the room. Sam blinked. I didn't do anything." "Don't be modest now," another Lavinia scientist chimed in, crossing her arms. "Your primitive methods have apparently achieved what centuries of advanced research could not." Sam scratched the back of his head, his confusion genuine. "I just followed the planting guide." "Maybe it's the soil? Or the light?" Tvelna stepped closer, her gaze scrutinizing. "Or perhaps it's you," she said, her tone shifting from accusatory to speculative. The room fell silent as the Lavinia exchanged uneasy glances. Then, one of them laughed nervously. "Don't be absurd. Human biology couldn't possibly influence our systems." "Couldn't it?" Tvelna countered, her eyes narrowing. "His presence has coincided with this breakthrough. What if his essence is compatible with our environment?" Sam held up his hands. "Whoa, let's not jump to conclusions. I'm just here to help, not whatever you're suggesting." Tvelna wasn't listening. She gestured to the plants, which were now pulsating softly, as if alive. "This is no coincidence. The human's essence, however crude, has triggered something unprecedented." Sam's face burned. "Can we not use the word essence?" It's starting to sound weird. The Lavinia ignored him, their focus now entirely on the implications. Tvelna turned back to Sam, her expression unreadable. Whatever the cause, you've done something remarkable. Of course, we'll need to run tests. Tests? Sam echoed, his stomach sinking. Tvelna's lips twitched into a smirk. Don't worry. We'll be gentle, for now. The laughter that followed wasn't cruel this time, but it still left Sam feeling like he was the butt of some cosmic joke. As he stood there, surrounded by glowing plants and scrutinizing alien gazes, he couldn't shake the feeling that his life was about to get a lot more complicated. The lab buzzed with activity as the Lavinia gathered around the thriving plants, their once confident smirks replaced by furrowed brows and wide eyes. The alien scientists whispered furiously among themselves, their graceful gestures now frantic. Sam stood awkwardly to the side, trying to make sense of the commotion. This isn't possible, one of them muttered, running a scanner over the glowing vines. It's not just the plants. There's residual energy. Tvelna approached Sam, her usual air of superiority now tinged with uncertainty. You're sure you didn't introduce any foreign agents? No contaminants? Sam shrugged, trying to look anywhere but at her piercing gaze. Unless you count my clumsiness, no. I just followed the protocols you gave me. Followed them straight into madness, another Lavinia quipped, though her tone lacked the usual bite. Before Sam could respond, the conversation was interrupted by a sharp gasp from one of the younger scientists. She was staring at her own reflection in a shimmering panel, her hands trembling. Something feels different, she whispered. The group turned their attention to her, their eyes narrowing in suspicion. Sam, feeling more out of place by the second, edged back. What exactly do you mean by different? The scientist hesitated, her skin shimmering faintly as she placed a hand on her abdomen. It's as if, she trailed off, her expression a mixture of shock and disbelief. Another Lavinia, slightly older and usually composed, stepped forward. I feel it too. Her tone was calmer, but her wide eyes betrayed her alarm. Tvelna's gaze flickered between them, her calculating mind clearly racing. Then, as if a switch had flipped, her head snapped toward Sam. What did you do? Me? Sam yelped, holding up his hands. I didn't do anything. I'm just as confused as you are. The room filled with murmurs as the Lavinia began scanning themselves, their sleek devices blinking with an unusual frequency. One by one, their expressions shifted from disbelief to stunned realization. This can't be right, one of them murmured. It's not possible. Our reproductive systems require direct synchronization with the genetic matrix. Humans, she broke off, her gaze narrowing at Sam. Tvelna stepped closer, her eyes narrowing. It seems, human, that your primitive essence has accomplished the impossible. You've triggered something in our biology. Sam blinked, his face flushing red. Hold on a second. Are you saying, no? No, no, no. That's not what happened. Another Lavinia tilted her head, a faint smirk returning to her lips. And yet, here we are. Perhaps we underestimated just how versatile human biology can be. Versatile? Sam spluttered. I didn't even touch anyone. The smirk grew. Oh, we're aware. Apparently, even your proximity was enough to influence our systems. Fascinating. Tvelna silenced the growing laughter with a raised hand. This isn't a joke. If what we're seeing is true, then this human has somehow triggered an unprecedented biological response across multiple subjects. Her gaze locked onto Sam, unrelenting. And we need answers. Sam groaned, rubbing his temples. Look, I'm as confused as you are. I didn't do anything except bleed on some dirt. Are you seriously telling me that caused this? One of the younger scientists spoke up, her tone equal parts intrigued and accusatory. It wasn't just the soil. The energy released by the plants must have created a feedback loop, interacting with our systems. His DNA acted as a catalyst. Sam threw up his hands. So now I'm a walking science experiment? Great. Tvelna ignored his sarcasm, her mind already racing ahead. If this effect is replicable, it could solve not just our fertility crisis but reshape our entire understanding of genetic compatibility. Replicable? Sam repeated, his stomach sinking. You mean you want to do this again? The group exchanged looks, their shimmering eyes reflecting both curiosity and a touch of mischief. It would be irresponsible not to, Tvelna said, her tone firm. Scientific progress demands a volunteer. Sam interrupted, backing away. And I'm not volunteering. Laughter rippled through the group, but this time it wasn't mocking. One of the Lavinia stepped forward, her expression unusually soft. You misunderstand, human. Your contribution has already proven invaluable. Whether intentional or not, you've given us hope. Sam blinked, the weight of her words sinking in. Hope? That's a lot to put on one guy who just wanted to grow some plants. Another Lavinia chimed in, her voice laced with amusement. Well, it seems you've grown more than that. The double meaning wasn't lost on Sam, who groaned audibly. Can we please stop with the wordplay? This is serious. Tvelna nodded, her expression uncharacteristically thoughtful. You're right. It is serious. Which is why we need to ensure this phenomenon is understood and controlled. Sam sighed, realizing there was no escaping the situation. Fine. But if you're expecting some kind of miracle explanation, you're out of luck. I'm just a botanist. Perhaps, Tvelna said, her smirk returning. But it seems you're a botanist with quite the fertile imagination. The room erupted into laughter again, and Sam buried his face in his hands. This was going to be a long day. The Lavinia council chamber was abuzz with debate as Sam stood in the center, feeling like a specimen under a microscope. He was flanked by several alien scientists, all of whom had now shifted from mockery to reverence, much to his discomfort. We must analyze every aspect of his contribution, one of the counselors said, tapping a sleek data tablet. This could revolutionize our genetic programs. Contribution? Sam interjected, waving his hands. Let's not make this sound like I signed up for anything. I didn't even know what was happening. Tvelna, now acting as his reluctant advocate, folded her arms and addressed the council. Regardless of intent, the results are undeniable. His biological essence triggered a chain reaction that resolved our long-standing fertility issues. This is no small feat. Sam groaned. Can we stop calling it essence? It's making me sound like some kind of weird perfume ad. A younger counselor smirked, glancing at her tablet. Perhaps it's fitting. He has proven, surprisingly potent. Okay, seriously, Sam snapped, his face flushed. Do you guys do this on purpose, or is this just how you talk? The council leader raised a hand to quiet the room, her tone commanding. Enough. The human's contribution has been scientifically verified. What matters now is how we proceed. Tvelna stepped forward, her gaze steady. Proceed with caution. While the phenomenon is promising, it raises significant ethical concerns. Sam perked up, nodding. Yes. Ethical concerns. Let's focus on that. The leader tilted her head, clearly unimpressed by his enthusiasm. And yet, the potential benefits outweigh the risks. Human, are you willing to continue aiding us in this endeavor? Sam hesitated, every instinct screaming at him to refuse. But then he glanced at the Lavinia scientists, their earlier mockery replaced by something resembling genuine gratitude. For the first time, he saw how desperate they truly were. I'll help, he said reluctantly, but on one condition, no more weird tests without my knowledge. I don't want to wake up one day and find out I've accidentally fertilized an entire galaxy. The council erupted into laughter, and Sam buried his face in his hands. Hours later, he found himself in the lab again, this time surrounded by Lavinia scientists armed with scanners and other advanced devices. They had set up what looked like an elaborate nursery, complete with glowing incubators for the hybrid offspring. One of the scientists approached Sam with a data pad. We need you to interact with the progeny directly. It will help us determine if your presence continues to influence their development. Sam blinked. You want me to babysit alien babies? Precisely, she replied without a trace of irony. And so, Sam was thrust into the role of intergalactic babysitter. The hybrid children were surprisingly human-like in appearance, though their skin shimmered faintly like their Lavinia mothers. They stared up at him with wide, curious eyes, their tiny hands reaching out to grab at his fingers. Despite himself, Sam felt a pang of affection. All right, little ones. Let's figure this out together. The Lavinia observed from a distance, their expressions a mix of scientific curiosity and quiet awe. Remarkable, Tvelna murmured. Even at this stage, they exhibit a unique blend of traits. His influence has clearly extended beyond mere fertilization. Can we please stop calling it that? Sam muttered, rocking one of the infants gently. As the hours passed, Sam discovered that the hybrid children responded to his presence in unexpected ways. When he hummed a tune, their shimmering skin glowed softly. When he spoke, they babbled back in a mix of human and Lavinia sounds. The Lavinia scientists were quick to take notes, their excitement growing with each new observation. It appears his vocal frequencies resonate with their bioluminescent patterns, one of them noted. Vocal frequencies? Sam said with a grin. You mean my dad jokes are literally lighting up the room? The Lavinia didn't laugh, but their approving nods felt like a small victory. By the end of the day, Sam was exhausted but oddly content. The hybrid children had fallen asleep in their glowing incubators, their tiny forms curled up peacefully. He turned to Tvelna, who was reviewing the day's data. So, did we figure anything out, or am I still just the galaxy's weirdest science project? Tvelna glanced at him, her expression softer than usual. You've proven more capable than we anticipated, human. Perhaps there's more to your species than we gave you credit for. Sam chuckled. High praise coming from someone who called me a weed. She didn't deny it, but the faint smile on her lips spoke volumes. As he left the lab, Sam couldn't help but reflect on how much had changed in such a short time. The Lavinia no longer saw him as a joke, and he no longer felt like an outsider. For the first time since arriving on Zanara Prime, he felt like he belonged. Even if that meant being the reluctant father figure to an entire generation of glowing alien babies. The hybrids were thriving, their bioluminescent glow brighter each day. The Lavinia, once so quick to dismiss Sam, now treated him with a mix of respect and curiosity. He couldn't walk into the lab without being swarmed by scientists asking for his opinion on everything from feeding schedules to development timelines. Human, one of them said, holding a scanner toward him, we've observed a unique energy field around the progeny when you're nearby. Your presence seems to catalyze their growth. Sam raised an eyebrow. You're saying I'm their personal Wi-Fi signal now? The scientist tilted her head, clearly confused by the analogy, but before she could respond, Tvelna approached with her usual air of authority. The council has reviewed the data. Your involvement has undeniably accelerated our progress. However, this development presents new challenges. Challenges, Sam repeated, crossing his arms. Let me guess, more tests. Not just tests, Tvelna replied, her tone serious. The council believes your continued presence is essential for the hybrid's stability. We need to establish a permanent arrangement. Permanent? Sam's voice rose an octave. Are you telling me I have to stay here forever? Tvelna's expression softened, a rare moment of vulnerability. Your contribution has given us something we thought we'd lost. We cannot ask you to stay, but leaving may jeopardize the hybrid's development. Sam exhaled, running a hand through his hair. You're putting a lot on me, you know that? I'm just a guy who wanted to grow some plants. And yet, Tvelna said with a faint smile, you've grown so much more. The Lavinia's unintentional double meanings were starting to sound intentional, and Sam groaned. Can we at least agree to stop using phrases that make this sound like a bad romance novel? The younger scientists stifled their laughter, but Tvelna remained composed. We'll work on our phrasing, she said dryly. Over the next few days, Sam found himself navigating an entirely new role. The hybrids were not just thriving, they were displaying traits that fascinated the Lavinia scientists. Their bioluminescence pulsed in response to Sam's emotions, and they began mimicking his behavior in small but unmistakable ways. Remarkable, Tvelma said during one observation session. They're adapting to you, not just biologically but behaviorally. It's as if they're bonding with you on a fundamental level. Sam sighed, holding one of the hybrids as it reached for his face with tiny glowing hands. Great. I'm a role model now. No pressure or anything. Tvelma's expression softened again, and Sam noticed for the first time that her usual sharpness had dulled into something almost warm. You've proven yourself more capable than anyone expected. Perhaps even more capable than you realize. He laughed, though it came out more nervous than amused. Thanks, I think. But let's not get carried away. I'm still figuring this out as I go. And yet, she said, her voice quiet but firm, you've managed to succeed where we failed for centuries. The weight of her words hung in the air, and Sam found himself unable to respond. As the days turned into weeks, Sam became an integral part of the Lavinia's society. The hybrids were growing rapidly, their unique blend of human and Lavinia traits creating a new standard of beauty and brilliance. The Lavinia, once so proud and aloof, now openly expressed their gratitude to Sam, though their phrasing often left him red-faced. One afternoon, Tvelma approached him with a small data pad. The council has approved a proposal for your continued involvement. It includes regular intervals of interaction and potential future contributions. Sam groaned, pinching the bridge of his nose. Future contributions? Can we please just call it babysitting and leave it at that? Tvelma's lips twitched in what might have been a smile. If that's what helps you accept the arrangement, then yes. Babysitting. He sighed, looking around at the hybrids who were now toddling around the lab, their laughter filling the air. Despite the absurdity of the situation, he couldn't deny that he'd grown attached to them, and to the Lavinia themselves. You know, he said after a moment, this wasn't exactly what I had in mind when I signed up for this job. But I guess it's not the worst thing that's ever happened to me. Tvelma tilted her head, her expression thoughtful. High praise from a human. Don't get used to it, he replied with a grin. The council called for a final ceremony to honor Sam's contributions, an event that brought together the entire Lavinia society. Sam stood awkwardly at the center of a grand hall, surrounded by shimmering lights and glowing decorations. One by one, Lavinia leaders stepped forward to express their gratitude, though their phrasing often left Sam struggling to keep a straight face. Your essence has enriched our lives beyond measure, one leader said solemnly. Sam muttered under his breath, really gotta find a new word for that. When it was Tvelma's turn to speak, she stepped forward with a rare smile. Human, you arrived here as a curiosity, an anomaly we mocked. But you've proven that even the most unexpected contributions can lead to extraordinary results. For that, we thank you. The crowd erupted into applause, and Sam couldn't help but smile, despite the lingering awkwardness. As the ceremony concluded, Tvelma approached him once more. You've earned your place here, Sam. Whether you choose to stay or leave, know that you've made an impact that will last for generations. He chuckled, scratching the back of his neck. No pressure, right? None at all, she replied, though her tone suggested otherwise. As Sam looked out at the hybrids playing and laughing, he realized that, for better or worse, he'd found something unexpected on Zanara Prime, a purpose. And maybe, just maybe, he was okay with that.